This is going to be my preview for the Lions Week 5 matchup against the Panthers. This time the game is at home. If you're a Lions fan and you're listening, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you obviously know the circumstances by which the Lions went down to North Carolina and lost last year on Christmas Eve. I'm going to talk about the Panthers defense here, specifically how it matches up against the Lions offense. The Panthers defense is interesting when you compare it to last year. In some ways, it's almost done a flip-flop in terms of what they're really good at and what they're struggling with. Let's start with what they're struggling with. They've allowed 545 rushing yards through 4 games. That's on 4.7 yards per carry. Only 6 teams in the NFL have allowed more rushing yards than the Panthers through 4 weeks. It's clearly been a relative weakness of their defense. Looking at it this way, it's been consistent. It's not like they gave up 260 in one game. They've allowed at least 130 rushing yards in each game. And in a week when the Lions are probably going to be without Amon-Ra St. Brown, it would be a good idea to sit him down this week if you ask me. With Jamison Williams coming back, seems like a perfect opportunity, right? Even though they don't play the same position clearly. Because the Panthers' defense is superb against the pass. They've given up just over 700 passing yards through 4 games. So you're talking about less than 200 passing yards per game. 6th best in the NFL. They've got 12 sacks, which anytime you've got Brian Burns on your team, I mean, that should surprise no one. That's just what you're going to have. The guy gets after the quarterback. He will impact the game as a pass rusher, pretty much regardless of who he goes against. Frankie Lavue, who's a very underrated hybrid inside linebacker, outside linebacker, occasionally plays safety. I mean, he does a lot of things, nickel safety kind of. He does a lot of things. He's got 2.5 sacks, 23 tackles. They've got a real solid blend of accomplished veterans with high-level young defensive players. Von Bell, a free agent signing from the Bengals, leads the team in tackles with 24. From being a Ravens content creator and watching so much Bengals film, clearly I know a lot about Von Bell. He's a far better football player in all aspects of the game than he gets credit for. Justin Houston was signed as a pass rush specialist. That one hurt me as a Ravens fan to see him go. But he's on the field a lot on early downs. That's the part that has surprised me some, to be honest with you. And I haven't thought that he's looked as impactful against the pass, to be honest with you, this year. Now, Lions fans may not be familiar with those last 2 names, Von Bell and Justin Houston, but the majority of this defense for the Panthers is the same group that played last year in Carolina's 37-23 win. That one really put the Lions' playoff chances in peril. I mean, at that point, anyway, on Christmas Eve, no one listening really needs a reminder that the Lions won 8 of their last 10 games in 2022. The only 2 losses in that stretch was 28-25 to the Bills on Thanksgiving. Very competitive game. And then after Detroit stacks up 3 more wins, the Lions go to Carolina and just really took a beating. The defense gave up 320 yards rushing. That dynamic is going to be totally flipped on Sunday in terms of the Lions' defense will stop the run. That's what they do. I think they've only given up 60 rushing yards per game, 61, something like that. 3 yards per carry. It's been ridiculous how great their defense has been against the run. I'm not focusing on their defense here, but I'm talking about the dynamic being changed from last year's game to this year's game. Last year, the Lions couldn't run the ball consistently on their side. I think 17 carries for like 42, 44 yards, something like that. They fell behind 24-7 at halftime, 31-7 at one point early, third quarter. Goff did throw for 355, but a lot of that was in the second half. Let's get to some of the film from last year's game, and the only reason I familiarized myself with it, to be honest with you, is because it is exactly how I remember. This is the first play of the game. Everything was contested. Everything. It seemed like Carolina was in the right call, quote unquote, often. You had D linemen getting past deflections. You didn't have these easy outlet routes being available no matter what the coverage was that the Panthers were playing. And when Goff was able to get a little bit of time, guys weren't open or there was pressure on him. It just seemed like a different thing on every play. I thought the Panthers had the right call, especially early. I believe they forced the Lions to punt on 4 of their first 6 possessions, even when a linebacker, in this case, this is Frankie Lavue. Again, this is film from last year. Even when he kind of overextends on the snag flat concept and lets a receiver get inside of him, meaning he's overextended, he's gone too far out into the flats. because I think they're really zoning this off, and he makes a mistake. The pass gets deflected, and when there's the opportunity on the second play of the game to get a completion for 6, 7, 8 yards. This is the play that I'm talking about. Chark is going to sit down. I know that none of these players are there from a Lions standpoint, the two that I'm referencing, but conceptually, what the Panthers did was play great pass defense. Even though they gave up 355, they played great pass defense early, played amazing run defense, and then they got hands on balls. They got to the quarterback at times. I think Brian Burns had 1.5 sacks, if I remember correctly. He's just going to be someone that's there in your face every play. They shut down the run game. That will be the interesting part for me from this game. For this game, I have film loaded up for you guys from week 3 and week 4 of this year of the Panthers defense, of them giving up chunk run plays against 11 personnel and 12 personnel. I think Ben Johnson is on the spot this week as far as designing run concepts to take advantage of this defense, and then build in the complementary play action passes. Well, they're already built. I mean, the offense is already designed and installed, but my point is having the right calls in for the right player as it matches up the Lions offense against the Panthers defense. Dealing with Brian Burns is just a nightmare, no matter who you are. He's a guy that I think this year, if things go the way they are for Carolina, I think he'll be the number one possible trade target for a lot of teams, because he's a guy who's instant impact in the pass game and is no nonsense, to deal with at all. Can the Lions run the ball on this team? I mean, sure. Like, Ben Johnson can figure out a way to run the ball on this football team. I know that the left tackle is questionable again, but he was questionable last week. I'm quite sure he'll play. The dynamic has shifted in terms of what Carolina's really good at. They're really good at defending the pass. Not so good this year at defending the run clearly if you just look at the stats. I think that'll probably be a focus early for the Lions to either come in and run the ball, establish it, or utilize it to try to get Jameson Williams free on some play action concepts. Because if Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't play, which you would expect he does not, that's one of your main outlet guys being unavailable. I do offer to you some optimism that it might be an interesting dynamic if he doesn't play, which it seems like he will not. And Jameson Williams does get to play with Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds, who's having an amazing season, if you ask me, so far. All right, so the next thing I'll try to do in some of these previews, and I need you guys to give me feedback on what you like to see, what you enjoyed about this, is I'll look at specific plays and specific concepts that seem to be working. Now, again, my time is limited. I do Ravens content and Lions content, so it's impossible for me to get every single play in the database for an opposing team, but we're chewing through getting more of that done. Josh has been a huge help entering data. He's a Lions fan, so shout out to him and that fan base for wanting this type of content, at least from the suggestions so far. That's why I'm putting this out today. So let's look at some of the run concepts that have given the Panthers trouble. And to be honest with you, it's multiple. Different personnel groupings, different formations, different situations, different teams. The run seems to be giving them trouble. This is just like a kick play out of 13 personnel, so certainly would be available to the Lions. I think one of the tight ends, I think it's Mitchell, is possibly out this week, so there's an issue there. But Brock Wright and Sam Laporta, I mean, come on, like, you can use those guys with a fullback, although Cabinda is out. So you can use 12 personnel, get things done, just like 13 personnel. Here's 12 personnel, 2nd and 1 against the Seahawks. This is some of these offbeat or ad-libbed plays they're having trouble with. Now, granted, Kenneth Walker III is just a spectacular football player, but compare what he did against the Lions defense to what he did on some of these plays that I'm showing you. He's going to have a 36-yard gain here where he just makes a dude miss. That's a corner with leverage, gives up the outside, 36-yard gain down the sideline. Compare how the Lions shut down Kenneth. I mean, Kenneth Walker the third did have a 14-yard gain on the first play of the game, I think, and an 11-yard run later on. But other than that, he was shut down in the run game. And they popped off against Carolina multiple times, him and Zach Charbonnet, who I'll show you some film of here. This is a 22-yard run. Again, ad-libbed, kind of off schedule, offbeat. I think it comes back for a penalty. Justin Houston has not played to the level that I expect of him for Carolina. That doesn't mean he can't come in there and look. He's a splash player, just like Brian Burns. Compare him to like an NBA scorer who might score 8 points one game, 7 points, and then the third game he'll give you 38. Justin Houston could do that in terms of sacks, and Brian Burns is a little bit more consistent at this point because Houston's 34 years old. But against the run, they have not been nearly as consistent, if you ask me. People have beaten them to the front side. They've beaten them on cutback or bounce plays, 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 13 personnel in this little cut up that I'm making you. I'm just giving you a preview of the game. And this is the one that bothers me the most. This is into the boundary. It's a 13-yard gain to Madison's full flow, absolute full flow. Now it's 11 personnel, and this could be an option for, and I'm going to talk about this, I think, on two of these plays here in a moment. This could be an option for Ben Johnson. You got 3 over 2 to the field. Why? Because one of them is the nickel defender. So we know Ben Johnson likes to attack to the boundary, motion into the boundary, get that extra player. The nickel, I mean, they can't really move over there that quickly unless they rotate the safety. So what I'm talking about, most NFL teams do not want to do this on this motion. They don't want to rotate one safety down, rotate somebody else back to center field, kind of can give away coverage stuff, and then that opens you up to, the boot to the field. So in this case, Carolina is not rotating. They're bringing 21 off the edge, but it's full flow with the motion, full flow. Running back, motion, going the same side, all of the action going that way. Kirk Cousins is reverse pivoting, stretch, outside zone, whatever you want to call it. Absolute wins to the play side on the blocks by the Vikings. I think the Lions can do similar things. I would look for Ben Johnson to attack with the run game to the boundary, whether it's Burns over there, whether it's 97, who's a really good football player, another edge defender, a little bit bigger, or Justin Houston. 11 personnel run again. First drive of the game against the Vikings. I think this is going to be a little bit more clear than I was on the last play. This is what I'm talking about. Tight end, receiver into the boundary, and you've got 3 over 2 to the field. So just sheer numbers-wise down here into the boundary. In the run game, it's possible for you to get extra hats on the ball. Now, this happens to be a draw play that goes for 12. This, to me, is the type of thing you may see from the Lions in terms of trying to run the ball into the boundary. Maybe not a draw concept, but some of the sweep stuff that he does with Gibbs. I know Gibbs has had some injury trouble this week as well. But these are the types of things I think you'll see Ben Johnson try to attack them to the boundary out of 11 personnel, out of 12 personnel, maybe some 13 depending on who's healthy and who's available to try to get that run game going and then utilize the play action pass game in a complementary manner off of it. Here's 4 real specific examples of what I'm talking about. Ben Johnson attacking to the boundary, getting a 3 over 2 to the field with Twins receivers. It doesn't matter who you put out there. 11 personnel, that's generally what you're going to get, the nickel to the boundary, whether it's a sweep concept from week 1 to Jahmyr Gibbs, who's been a load for people to try to tackle, or if it's a sweep to Khalif Raymond. Again, you got the same dynamic that I described, tight end, receiver, and this time the running back is an A-gun to the boundary, but he's just set there to be a lead blocker on the fast sweep to Raymond. I think there's a penalty here on this play, but I'm showing you the concepts that I think you could probably get out of Ben Johnson. It's a penalty on the Seahawks, actually. It's the late hit on Goff. My apologies. Could be downhill stuff out of 12 personnel. Outside zone, like I showed you for the Vikings. Into the boundaries where I think you're going to see some early plays run by this Lions offense, trying to attack Carolina with the type of plays they've been weakest against, run plays, and then to the boundary in a location where Ben Johnson can kind of predetermine the matchup for his team, isolate certain guys, maybe get them away from the football, and attack the defense where they're weakest, because the offensive line for the Lions is what they want to rely on, particularly in a game where you don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown available, or presumably you won't. The last part of this that we'll look at in terms of the Panthers defense is why I think the run game has to be established. They're very good against the pass. They're very multiple in coverage. They play multiple coverages well. They're efficient with them, and then they get after the quarterback, as we talked about. We're going to look at a series of third downs here from the last 2 weeks, most of which are 3rd and 5 to 3rd and 8, somewhere in that range. We'll see one 4th down conversion by the Vikings to Justin Jefferson, but I offer to you that you're not going to see similar coverage against the Lions receivers as Justin Jefferson got on some of these 3rd and 4th downs. Let's get to the film. 3rd and 8 on the first drive, kind of like a max protection scheme by the Seahawks, bringing the tight end into the backfield, and you're going to get pressure from Justin Houston. Possibly a hold here. It's complete to the running back late. You can see they've got a zone mentality on this one. Very physical backside, dealing with DK Metcalf. At times they were playing safeties over the top of him, but oftentimes these guys were, rolling to whatever their assignment was. And these guys at corner are left alone. They trust everyone on their defense, if you ask me, and they're going to be physical. As I said in the opening, they contest everything. You saw that in the film from last year, where the Lions lost down there in Carolina. It's a different dynamic this year, the game being in Detroit. 3rd and 7, second possession. Going to get this little out motion and pressure from Burns, and then man defense, physical man defense in the slot, I believe against Tyler Lockett up top. Burns wins off the edge, forces Geno Smith off his spot. This is the type of complementary defense that they want to play, whether it's first, second, or third down. I think the Lions have got to be real focused and make a concerted effort to win first down and not put themselves in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, maybe not even 3rd and 6. If they can face a bunch of 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4s, where Ben Johnson has a little bit more of the playbook available, and Burns and Houston don't just get to pin their ears back. 97 is a good player too. This is a brilliant example, if you ask me, of how smart their DBs are, knowing what blitz is coming and what type of routes they've got to defend. 3rd and 9, fourth possession. It's going to be an out by, I think, JSN. And watch the safety break, because this nickel safety blitzes. And so this player right here knows there isn't going to be time for like a double move or anything. He's jumping the first move, which is an out, and he knows the ball should show up there. Sees hands show. Great play by that safety. This is the type of defense that I've seen them play the majority of the year against the pass, and one of the reasons why, like I said, they've only given up 700 passing yards through 4 games. 3rd and 3. This is the type of coverage I don't believe the Lions will get, no matter who's out there on the field. Jameson Williams, Josh Reynolds, Marvin Jones, Khalif Raymond. Doesn't sound like St. Brown's going to play, like I talked about a couple of times, but 3rd and 3, first drive, they don't want to give up a big play. So you're talking about a zone mentality, and then this corner is really off in coverage, allowing Justin Jefferson just an easy reception. Of course, he's got so much ability to beat you down the field, you kind of can't blame him. Second possession, 3rd and 6. Watch how quickly they break on the ball when it's in front. I think they tackle extremely well on downhill stuff. It might be a little bit of a generalization, but you saw some examples of poor tackling in the run game against Kenneth Walker when things became unsettled. Not really a QB scramble or extending the play, but when a running back gets off that track and they have to adjust laterally. They don't seem to be as brutally efficient tackling laterally, side to side, as they are coming downhill. Now, it's a 3rd and 6, so they know the ball's going to be thrown in front there. Third drive, 3rd and 2. You're actually going to see 2 consecutive plays here. This is going to be cover 3 by the Panthers. It's a nice job of expanding to the flats by Chin. And you can see the ball is already out from quarterback Kirk Cousins, and it's overthrown. Why? Because that curl flat defender's in the window. He basically just had to put it up really high in a place where only Justin Jefferson could make a play on it. So you'll see some cover 3. You'll see some man. I've shown you, I think, 2 instances of cover 2 zone already. Very multiple, very smart defense, and well prepared. This is the ensuing play. Another example, I think, of the type of coverage that you will not see on 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2 against any of your receivers. Really soft coverage. Ball was out by Kirk Cousins quick. Justin Jefferson on the little stop route. Easy first down. What you don't want to have happen in this game is 16, 18 times where it's 2nd and long, or 2nd and 9, or 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6, and you let these guys dial up pressure, because the ability of Burns and Houston to win off the edge creates opportunities in the blitz for stuff like this. This is, I think, Jeremy Chin on the blitz. Heavy pressure up the middle, quick sack on the 4th possession, 3rd and 5. To force a punt. I think the Lions have got to do whatever they can to avoid these situations. Not that the offensive line isn't good at pass pro. They certainly are, if everybody's healthy, clearly. But the ability of the Panthers defense to get after the quarterback in known passing situations, like this is a 2nd and 11. The inside moves by Brian Burns. He just continues to beat people on this stuff, get to the quarterback. I can't wait to see that matchup versus, I think it's Decker, if Decker's playing, right? I think he was questionable last week, played questionable this week. I can't wait to see that matchup because to me, Brian Burns is a guy who's going to do what he does no matter who he faces. And that's an extremely high level left tackle that he'll be going against this week. I'm not saying I think he will, but if he can shut down Burns, that takes away a huge element of their defense, the ability to get pressure quickly, whether it's an inside move, speed rush, or whatever. And then 97, he's more of a power rusher, but that's a kind of a misnomer. He's a power to speed rusher in some ways, a little bit bigger frame than those guys, taller, I think. This is a sack where he really kind of crumples Geno Smith. They've got multiple guys that can get to the quarterback. That's why I showed you the sack by Chin, the sack by Burns, who's just going to be a constant pain for any offensive line. Houston with the pressure, 97, which I think his name, if I pronounce it correct, is Gross Matos. It's a talented defense over there, guys. And you should expect the Lions to win, no doubt, because they should be favored in pretty much every game they played this year. I think the Lions are extremely deep, very tough and physically strong team and coached well. I saw a video of some players doing up downs, 40 of them. I was like, I didn't know they made them do up downs in the NFL. And we used to do that stuff with like high school kids and youth kids, but and then 2 veterans got down there and got involved in. I think it was Tracy Walker, and I forget who the other guy was. So really cool thing. I think this Lions team should be the favorite. There's no doubt, and they are. But I think the Panthers present a unique threat. It's kind of a reverse side of the coin from last year, whereby they shut down the run game in Carolina. Goff threw for 350, but they were down 31-7. So the last 4 possessions, kind of different coverages may be played than when the game is 50-50 in the first and second quarter. This year's game, the dynamic has shifted because of how many rushing yards the Panthers have allowed. Do you think the Lions can just bully them with the run game? Well, the Jahmyr Gibbs being questionable certainly throws a chink in that plan, if you ask me. But I think he'll go. It sounds like he was limited at least one day. David Montgomery had 32 carries against the Packers. If you go into a game with Gibbs already questionable and Montgomery got high usage last week, I would worry about a running back going down. And then what do you do? I know that Craig Reynolds is a capable third guy. I think it's McKnight. I think they brought in. He's also a talented player. I saw him with some runs the week before, week 3. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of the preview. If you're interested in more content like this, I'll try to pump one of these out every weekend and try to focus on one side or the other. Clearly, the Lions defense is a totally different thing without Brian Branch because of his coverage versatility, his range, his awareness, his speed, and how technical he is with everything he does. Lions defense is going to have to play well, don't get me wrong. You can't discount any offense in the NFL. Look, I'll let you know, the Ravens played the Carolina Panthers last year at home, and I thought that was a game the Ravens were going to win by 2 or 3 touchdowns. Now, it did end up being 13-3, and the Ravens had the ball inside the 10, I think, to finish the game. Clearly could have been, a wider disparity there. But I never discount any team in the NFL, particularly one that's got a defense with as many talented guys who play hard as this Panthers team does. Appreciate you guys' time. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. If you think other Lions fans will enjoy this content, this abbreviated preview of the Lions-Panthers rematch, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it somewhere out on social media to help this content get more reach.